Lately, I've been trying to simplify my closet, especially when it comes to pants, because why is it so hard to find a pair that actually looks good, travels well, and doesn't cost a fortune, Dan?
Well, Mark, that's why I've been living in the Jet Setter pants from Jack Archer. One versatile pair designed to take you from work to weekend without missing a beat. These things are seriously impressive. The fabric is wrinkle-free, stain-resistant, and somehow still holds its shape all day. No sagging, no stretching, no weird baggy knees. They're perfect for travel, too. I can wear them on a commute, throw them in a suitcase, or sit on a plane for hours and still arrive looking put together. And the fit? It's fully customizable. You choose your waist, length, and fit, athletic, slim, or straight. So whether you're tall, short, or somewhere in between, they actually fit you. Best part, they're just $89. For a limited time, get 15% off your first order using code GETJACK at jackarcher.com. Again, that's promo code GETJACK at jackarcher.com for 15% off your first order.
One of the most important swaps I've made is deodorant. It's something you use every single day and apply to a highly absorbent area. So what's in it really matters. Finding a natural deodorant that's actually clean and actually works can feel impossible. That's why I trust Primally Pure. Their non-toxic deodorants are made with simple, organic ingredients that are 100% natural and thoughtfully sourced, with thousands of 5-star reviews to back up the performance. Hot yoga, sauna sessions, long days on the go. It holds up when you need it most. Designed to work with your skin, not against it, this is clean care you can feel good about using every day. From deodorant to body, skin, baby, hair, and home, Primally Pure blends animal-based and plant-powered ingredients to support long-term skin health the way nature intended.
Heyo, welcome to Heed the Call, an NFL podcast, where every team is 0-0.
No, yeah.
Hope springs eternal, about 48 hours clear of Super Bowl 60. We'll put a punctuation on any conversations around that big game. And then on this very special episode, we're going to turn our attention to the offseason. We're going to talk a little bit about the coaching hires now that all 10 spots are filled. 10. And then we're going to discuss and lay out the offseason storylines that matter the most, that will define the next 6 to 8 months. And we have to have studs with us to do it. Of course, you know Marc Sessler's here. Sessy's here, okay? Of course, you know Gravy's here on the ones and twos, but joining us whenever we need a dog, James Palmer.
Call him in.
You bring him in. Bring him out of the pen like Mitch Williams, but he's never hanging a slider. Sorry to bring that one up.
Dude, I don't. That
you don't speed up Joe Carter's bat.
Yeah, that pitch defined my childhood. It was crushing. I mean, I didn't
bunch of
win a
people
single
from Scotland are like,
championship
what
as
the
a child.
are they talking about?
Well, I think Mark
Mitch
is asking
Williams.
the same question. Not a baseball guy, but continue.
Yeah, 93 fills, man.
Yeah, wild thing, Mitch Williams hung a slider to Joe Carter of the Toronto Blue Jays. He had a walk-off home run to win the series in 92.
Well, let me correct myself
93.
because I was sitting in a dorm room at Ithaca College watching that series. That was just a year or so after, a year before I worked at Baseball Weekly. So,
But that was also, very early 90s. You were probably, doing some type of toga party or something, whatever the kids did back then.
Yeah.
Absolutely, Dan.
I thought I dodged that moment, and here we are once again. But in the movie Big Daddy, starring Adam Sandler,
Sure.
that is brought up in the film, if you remember. That his good buddy Jon Stewart knocks up a waitress over at Hooters, and that's where we get the little boy for the film.
Kind of a weird movie, by the way.
It's very bizarre, and it's completely creepy that he just abducts this child for like an entire couple of weeks here. And just
Right, and then Jon Stewart, who is the Jon Stewart, they have this awful montage set to Growing Up by Bruce Springsteen, where in the middle of the courtroom, he's like, oh, I'm not going to be a deadbeat dad anymore. I'm going to take this kid.
And then he looks over and he says, Toronto, the World Series, Mitch Williams, Joe Carter. And I was like, oh, God.
You don't
not
need
now,
that.
even Jon Stewart's dropping it on me.
Anyway, so yes, we have James Palmer here to help guide us through, a man that knows so much about the landscape of our league. What's up, guys? Here we are. It is that time of year where you kind of hit the reset button. We're no longer just talking about, a handful of teams. Everyone is back in the conversation. And there is something nice about that, Mark. I think we could all agree.
Yeah, I mean, it's if you cover football or if you're watching or you do fantasy, there's like this hard and fast biorhythm to each week of the season. And it feels like it's been ages. We go back to the summer for that. And now suddenly I feel like we woke up from like you graduated college and it's like, what now? Where do I go? Where do I live? What do I do? Well, we just go forward and we cover all 32 teams.
I love that.
That's 2 college references for me in a mere 4.5 minutes.
Toga.
Yeah, that too.
Slug-a-lug. Chug-a-lug. All right, so why don't we start with a little fun wrap? Any other comments on Super Bowl 60? James, you were not with us. With the Arif Hassan joined us for the Super Bowl 60 recap. Anything that you wanted to get off your chest before we turn the page and move away from the 2025 season?
I know it's been brought up, but I'm just a huge John Schneider fan.
Oh, good call.
I just think we are lacking creativity. We're stuck in the same cycles as a league. I know we'll get into head coaching in this episode, all these different things. But this man just finds a way to stay ahead of the curve all the time. And since we talked about the 93 Phillies, I'll use a reference of like the Braves in the 90s were great at figuring out when it was like the end for Javier Lopez or the end for a different guy on the roster and got rid of them always when their value was high. They just had a great sense of when somebody was peaking. And the Russell Wilson trade obviously is like the crux of all that. I remember talking to people in Seattle after that trade and they were like, we knew he'd like peaked and he was going downward. We didn't think it'd go like this. But everything that transpired from that to Super Bowl 60, John Schneider's on fire, man. Like he does things his way. And I love that because it doesn't happen as often as we'd like in this league.
And you look at the window, right? That he built the champion in 2013, nearly run it back in 2014. And now here we are winning a Super Bowl in the early part of 2026. Very unusual, and it just punches its ticket, you would imagine, for at least another 3, 4, 5 years. And he's going to be one of the longest tenured GMs in the league. He's already got to be in the conversation.
16, I think, right now.
So yes, that's a great look back. Schneider deserves a lot of credit. It's very hard to do it with 3 different teams, get him to the Super Bowl. He wins 2 and very nearly won all 3. I just want to reflect my final reflections from the Darnold Hive, because we did a show right after the final play of the game, and we recorded live, and it was great. And thank you to everybody that joined us on that live stream. But then later in the night, I was on the couch and I'm seeing Darnold actually being interviewed with the confetti coming down. Here's a little bit from that.
Hey, listen, with all the ups and downs that come from a season, when you saw the confetti coming down, first thing that went through your mind?
We did it. That was it, man. It's been such a special journey with these guys. So much hard work that's been poured into this, and that's it. It was just a job well done.
Job well done, Seattle Seahawks.
That's the most Darnold can say, Mark, in terms of he's not the most charismatic quote. But yeah, I guess again, and it's like it was a complicated scene. Certainly if you're a Jets fan, also if you're a Vikings fan. So Vikings fans, it's almost a little worse because you actually saw him come into focus as a true franchise level passer, and then you let him out the door and he wins the Super Bowl immediately the next year. But to even where he was from January of last year, when everybody was writing him off once again prematurely, he's almost like the avatar now of the comeback story in our league.
Yeah, I mean, I heard it called the greatest quarterback comeback or turnaround career-wise of anyone. And I think there's different levels and tiers to that, because my mind also went to, in a different way, the embarrassing losses that a John Elway suffered in Super Bowls, then to turn around late in his career and have back-to-back glorious championship wins. The Darnold thing's different. I think Darnold brings hope to everyone who were going to tear apart quarterback-wise over the next year, a young quarterback that is not fully formed, and what can happen. And that wasn't a moment that reminds you of Michael Jordan in tears hugging the NBA trophy. because they're different types of personalities. They've got different fires and engines inside of them. But Darnold, basically, everywhere he's gone since, say, the Panthers, that was unremarkable, has done exactly what he's been asked to do. And he's become this incredible player, and he learned so much from the Niners. And what happened with Seattle, it's like, I just love the whole story of it. And I don't need him to come out there and be a verbal firebrand in that moment. Like, he's definitely a down-tempo dude, but he's Sam Darnold, and that team loves him, and they should. And it's like, it is one of the better quarterback stories we've ever covered on our long podcasting run.
Yeah. Long podcasting run. I will say, you mentioned him with the Niners. I remember talking to him on, I think, opening night a few years back when he was with the Niners, Mark, and just kind of talking about that experience. And you could just tell in the conversation that him and I had, it was just like, wow, he's picking things up as this has gone on in this journey, and how much coaching matters. There's a great piece by our mutual buddy Michael Sean Dugar, who wrote eloquently in The Athletic about what Clint Kubiak and Mike McDonald did for Sam, and I think it's a great representation of your situation, how the situation fits you specifically, as Mark's talking about his makeup, and how he's entirely wired, and how Clint and Mike kind of used that to their advantage on how they were going to bring him along in this season. And fit is everything in this league. And I think that part of it, the mental side of it, has now been changed forever for Sam Darnold. And I think that's the part I'm going to watch moving forward with him, now that those two, and with his play as well, played a part, and now he's viewed entirely different, and specifically how he views himself.
Is there a little bit of Kyle Shanahan inside the mind that's thinking, I think I just helped Seattle win a Super Bowl?
Oh, I'm sure it is. That is a twisted carnival of sadness inside that brain. And until he wins one, all that stuff, I imagine, is flying around like bats inside an old haunted house.
That's why he's been aging so quickly. Yeah.
But he played a role. And there is, like, last thing before we move on. My team hasn't won in 57 years. Mark's team's never won a Super Bowl. The Vikings have never won a Super Bowl. It makes it more, the anxiety creeps that much more when you realize the sliding doors of an NFL team where you can draft the guy and still not end up having the success. You could actually, it's so hard to find the quarterback. You can identify the quarterback in the draft process and still f it up. Or as the Vikings did, get this guy in the building at a discount and then hit gold and then talk yourself out of it for another decision you made, in that case, JJ McCarthy. There's so many ways to mess up building a champion. And it goes to show you the importance of having sound management and ownership. And that matters almost more than anything else. Last thought, Patriots side. Drake May, he comes within one vote of winning the MVP. One vote. If there's a guy that gave a first place vote to Justin Herbert. If that doesn't happen.
No, it's Sam Monson. And Sam Monson is not, like, what about all the people that voted for Stafford? Like, that's one of the reasons. That bubbled up
Sam
all
Monson
weekend.
Was the one that gave the first place vote?
Like, friend of the show, and like he was backing Herbert as an MVP, the framework of an MVP for months. And like, you don't have to agree with him, not you, but anyone. I mean, clearly many do not, but he at least went out and said, like, it was me who did it, and here's why.
Well,
but
I respect that, and we respect Sam.
Yeah.
I couldn't disagree more with his decision making, but he has the vote, and he made his decision, and that's what it is. But my point being, May came that close. Right. If one vote goes differently, potentially, to being the MVP, and then you see the game that he plays on Sunday, and I just want to get into the injury side of it, because I don't know, this was in the back of my head for the entire week, that he went from reports of a shoulder injury to then we get to Super Bowl week and he declares on Monday, nope, I'm shipshape, good to go. Then he's practicing in full by the end of the week. Then he's off the injury report entirely. Then he poops the bed in Super Bowl 60. And then we find out immediately after that he got a pain injection in that right shoulder. And it's just a little bit complicated, James. This is a league that has totally gotten into bed with gambling and the different partners and The owners of these teams have stakes in all the partners that they have. And it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. And it just doesn't quite pass the smell test that you would be off the injury report, but also getting like a 6-inch needle shot into your shoulder right before the biggest game of your life. Some of that was a little bit tricky and we're also, even us just as people are, analyzing the game. Like, we're told he's all shipshape, and then clearly he's not. And the way he played, it seemed like the shoulder might have affected him. That didn't pass the smell test to me in terms of integrity.
Yeah, what I would say this, Sam Darnold was not on the injury report, right? The final injury report?
I don't believe so. If you want to just double check that, Justin.
Yeah, for the oblique. And I'm not, this is no information behind it. I would not be surprised if he had any sort of injection into his oblique for the Super Bowl. We're just not talking about it because Sam played okay and they won the game. And he's not going to get asked about it. It's probably pretty low on the list of questions you're asking Sam Darnold after he wins his first Super Bowl.
He did say after the game, like, it really was something that bothered him, and it was a little, I'm paraphrasing, but a little dicey, but he got through it. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. And so I was having this conversation with Chase Daniel about it this morning, actually. And he was like, you can see with the way he threw the football, like, he wasn't right. And I was like, all right, how are we having this conversation now? Like, I had heard throughout the week, like, the deep ball wasn't going to really be a problem. Now, I don't think he threw a great deep ball because he didn't have any time to throw a deep ball. That wasn't it. It was when there was these tight window throws, and I was told this during the week, like, keep an eye on him really rifling it in there. And A, like, it would be difficult on those throws. B, the accuracy might be a little bit off on those throws. And we saw that. And so those things definitely were there. I just think, it's the Super Bowl and it's going to get downplayed even further. But yeah, I think it's easier to say after the game when you play I did get a Toradol shot. That's just what I'm speculating it was. The Magic T. And in your throwing shoulder, talking to Chase, he was like, I don't know how, if you can't feel your shoulder, how you play top level quarterback play.
And, Florio, Mike Florio, he lives for this kind of stuff. He wrote on this as well. And he had near the end of his write-up around this, he said, the scandal is coming, and when it happens, they'll act surprised, shocked, appalled, even if they should have seen it coming. It is like, and then something will happen down the line, and we've seen it in basketball, it's seen it in baseball. It's going to happen with football, and then we see what happens when that goes down. And it was the gambling industry opening up into the league and getting into bed with each other is still something that's in its infancy. And I don't think we've seen the first great challenge that will be caused because of it. But for now, everyone's just making a ton of money. I mean, we've made some money off it. I mean, so I'm not saying like this is something like we're like above it all, but the fact that it's now part of the league, these type of things make you think, and then you wonder how bad it can get down the line.
I mean, yes, I think that's well said. And like, it raises like a 3 or 4 pronged like level of concern about certain things and where the league's going. But from a football angle, like the league also, I mean, nobody anywhere wants Josh Dobbs in there. This is, to me, like the locker room is going to look at what their quarterback did and what he played through. And what he's willing to do to get on the field. There just was no other route. Like, that's the route to win over everyone. And I mean, how many players on both sides of this of the ball were banged up? It was stuff we'll never know about.
Right.
There's just so many unannounced injuries.
From the sports betting side of it, with tens of millions of dollars changing hands, and the league's injury report not actually giving an accurate representation of what the star quarterback of the Patriots is dealing with, is something that they might have to address because it's part of what they've now entered into.
Dan, are you saying they have to change the way they equate whether you're a full participant or on it?
Because if
he takes all the reps and he takes every single rep and he's not limited in practice, he is a full participant throughout the week, right? Like, are you saying they should change the way that they go about
perhaps
the monitor
it's not detailed enough. Perhaps it's too vague for considering that it's a sports business that's directly involved with your league and you're taking money from it. But
that involves your opponent too. I think that's why it's hazy, because it's like, to James's point, if you're a full participant, I don't know, like, are you saying that gamblers should know that he took a shot before the game? Like, that just feels like information that we'd often
If I would
never
have bet
know
on the
about.
Patriots on Sunday, I would be pretty pissed if I learned after the game that there was a pain injection and he wasn't even on the injury report. Like, it's a little too vague for, I don't know.
But
I don't gamble.
It's a difficult spot to be in, honestly. And you saw on it, like a really good example of it is how testy Bo Nix got and had his press conference after Sean Payton revealed some injury type of details maybe that Bo didn't want out there. I think that's a very good example of the way these players are with their injuries and the way they would like them to be kept private. That's for a competitive balance. I think Mark kind of hinted on that in terms of you don't want your opponent to know any of your weaknesses in terms of your health. And that's where the players aspect of hiding these things from opponents is another layer really of this entire, convoluted way of looking at every single aspect of these guys on the injury report. He wants to take every rep so he's not on the injury report. So Seattle thinks, he's going to throw the deep ball the way he has and been explosive the entire season and all these different things. That the competitive balance, I think, is still where the players are thinking. And now we've just added another layer to the discussion.
Right. I guess it's just gamblers beware, because even what they're telling
that's
you,
that's the PSA right there. That's a good PSA.
Beware.
Gamblers beware.
Justin, I hope you're paying attention. All right, let's take a break. And when we get back, we're going to do a little S tier through F tier on the coach hires, and then share what are going to be the key storylines that drive this offseason. Stay right there. Becoming a parent has a way of shifting everything. You stop living just in the moment and start picturing the future. First days of school, big dreams, and all the little moments in between. For me, taking care of my family also meant preparing for the what ifs. Even the ones no one really wants to think about. That's why I chose life insurance through Ethos.
Absolutely. What impressed me right away was how easy it was. Ethos lets you handle everything online, from getting a quote in seconds to completing an application in about 10 minutes. Some people even get covered the very same day. There's no medical exam. You just answer a few health questions, and that's it. Coverage can go up to $3 million with plans starting around $30 a month, Dan.
Yep, and we're not the only ones who trust them. Ethos has earned a 4.8 out of 5-star rating on Trustpilot from over 3,000 reviews. Plus, as of March 2025, Business Insider named Ethos the #1 no medical exam instant life insurance provider. Protect your family with life insurance through Ethos. Get your free quote in minutes at ethos.com/HTC. That's ETHOS.com/HTC. Ethos.com/HTC. Application times and rates may vary.
Wellness doesn't have to be complicated. Sometimes it's just how your home feels when you walk in the door. Pura Plus lets you create soft, feel-good moments with premium fragrances in open concept spaces, automatically, beautifully, and effortlessly. For a limited time, get a free Pura Plus diffuser with your first scent subscription. 2 cents for 12 months, risk-free for 30 days. Calm your space, lighten your day. Visit Pura.com today.
All right, we are back. I'm glad we even got Gravedigger back, Mark, after his gangbusters performance. Legend, his rapping. What was the name of that song? And are you going to put that on Spotify? Is there anything we need to know? James, if you're not aware, Justin did a live rap to end our recap episode on Sunday. Yeah.
Can I hear it? Watch your back, bad buddy.
Yeah, it's on social media on the Heed the Call account if you want to find it. No worries.
I did notice it was the first thing that our producer sent out on Super Bowl Sunday night.
Well before the show actually went out, which Justin, it was your night to do that. So
here's, if
like,
anyone
this is
cares.
how I rank who's like biggest nights Sunday night. It was like Sam Darnold third, Mike McDonald second, Justin Graver, producer, Heed the Call first, I would say. Yeah.
The real reason for that is once you upload the audio podcast file, it has to go through this processing phase before you can insert the ads.
That's
and
why.
During that processing phase, I just in point, out point, clipped the rap and put it in the world. Yeah.
He's white gravy, James.
Put it in the world.
I would say that you caused a stir, White Gravy. Now you have 2 nicknames at this point, which is you're heading in the right direction. But taking a look at the response, I would consider it like a 98 out of 100 response from people. It's a welcoming fan base, but they could have picked you apart.
I almost feel like you should never do it again.
I would not.
I feel like anything like because remember what New Balance, Nate Burleson, he was doing it every year over at NFL Media, and then after a while, nobody gave a shit anymore. Like you want maybe like one of those things like
if they did to begin with, sure, but yeah,
it's better. It's better to burn out than fade away. These are all things you have to decide as an artist, and we're certainly not going to help you make that decision. That's your path.
Right. Yeah. I think like we did the Patreon draft show wrap. We did the Super Bowl recap wrap. Like the next wrap, not the Super Bowl season recap. The next wrap has to be a totally new subject. You know, I'll keep rapping, but I'm not going to keep recapping seasons.
And even like maybe, Mark, maybe the platform changes. Maybe it's over on the Titans podcast, the next one.
Yeah, it could be day 3 of free agent or day 3 of the draft or day 3 of free agency, like just a real epic.
Like an AFC South day 3 of the draft recap. That feels like a net follow-up single. Sure.
But to answer your question, I have looked into the process of getting it on Spotify, and we'll see where it goes.
Okay. Love it.
I have looked into the process. Very good, Justin. All right. Can you throw it up, Justin? A little, this shows that we are really plugged into the zeitgeist online. Everybody loves these tier rankings out there. We now have all 10 coaching slots filled after Clint Kubiak confirmed on Super Bowl Sunday night that he is indeed the next head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. So what we're going to do is go through the list, all 10, and everyone's going to get a chance. We're not going to debate it amongst ourselves. You're going to make the choice. You slot them in where you think they belong, and we'll take it from there. I guess I'll go first, and I'll just go in order here, what we're looking at. We'll start with MILF, Michael LaFleur, Arizona Cardinals. And this one, it's a little tricky because I want to give LaFleur the chance, obviously. He's obviously the brother of Matt LaFleur. He's got the right ties. He's got the right connections. He's going to a very difficult situation. Doesn't have a quarterback set up. He's replacing Jonathan Gannon, and it's good to replace Jonathan Gannon, but I can't get thrilled and super pumped up about this one. It's going to go right in the middle for me. I'm going to slot this in at the C tier, MILF to the Cardinals. Anybody have any thoughts on that?
It's accurate.
Yep. I think there's innate challenges from ownership to quarterback to overall team health and his own inexperience learning on the job.
Yeah, and just if people don't know, there's a S tier is the highest possible level for a hire here, and the worst type of hire would be F at the bottom of the list. Why it's not A? I don't know. Somebody else do the research. James, put a button on this one before we move on to the next.
Okay, this was considered one of the I would say bottom 2 openings. Asking around the league, doing all of my head coaching work. So yes, a lot of work to be done there, but I do think they started building this thing in a little bit of the right process. And oftentimes when a owner has a bit of a short leash, sometimes he swings back the other way with the next head coach. So possibly that could help Matt LaFleur.
All right. Up next, Marc Sessler, why don't you take care of Kevin Stefanski, your former team's head coach, now running the Atlanta Falcons?
Kevin Stefanski, I'm going to give this a B. 2-time coach of the year, I'd say it's much closer to 1 during a special Browns season where he changed the organization. I'm left a little bit mystified by the Kevin Stefanski experience down the stretch where there were organizational issues, the worst trade in sports history, and Kevin Stefanski became kind of a droid after that, went quiet. It was hard to understand how he felt about anything, detached from the media, and the team fell through the floor. And so you go to Atlanta. I like the hire in terms of there's a lot to like about this roster to begin with, where you could compete for the division out of the gate. The quarterback, he's there for that reason. Michael Penix Jr. matters a ton here for this to work. And
if he's even the guy.
If he's the guy, yeah. I mean, there's a question there, but I think that they inside the organization, there's a lot of new faces there, that he's gonna get a decent shot to be the guy. I'm giving it a B. I don't know how I'd call it an A. I think that Kevin Stefanski's a solid B.
I think a B is a good spot. I was going to say, James, like I think it works against Penix because now all the people making decisions from the front office down weren't involved with the Penix move, other than Arthur Blank at the very top of the chain. Have you heard anything there about where they might be leaning? Of course, Kirk Cousins is going to be cut. So it could be a complete reboot unless Penix gets one more chance. And he's also coming off, obviously, reconstructive knee surgery.
Yeah, well, it's like 100th knee injury. I do know when Kevin was weighing all of his options, Penix was a big part of the process of looking at Atlanta's structure, and I think he does like Penix a good amount. I would say that. I would really keep my eye on Kirk Cousins, honestly. Like, getting cut, getting released, does he still maybe reverse course? He has a history with Kevin. Kevin was a big part of kind of the resurgence of Kirk, in all honesty. I think this is a good spot. I think it's a better run organization than the one he just departed from. We got to keep these players out of the cell, but I think the guys that are still going to be coming back in 2026, it's a decent roster. Yeah, I think this is probably where it's supposed to be. I think we're going to keep our eye, though, on the structure of the organization with Matt Ryan above him and in just a very unique role. I find that there's a lot of new here. New GM, Matt Ryan, a lot of new.
All right. Up next, James, you take us on this one. Jesse Minter, new head coach of the Baltimore Ravens, coming over from the Chargers, where he ran that defense so well.
I have more confidence in this hire than any other hire in this cycle. So
is he going to do it?
Put this.
Is he going to do it?
I'm going to put this at the S.
S tier hire.
Like it.
All right. Tell us why.
This is so on brand for the Ravens. This is somebody that they're familiar with, somebody that from everybody I talked to with the Chargers is just a star in the making. He walks into a room, commands so much presence. I'm not sure an organization could have more information on a candidate than what the Ravens have on Jesse Minter. I think the path that he has had plays a very, very big part in this. I think the way he schemes things up defensively plays a very big part in this. I think his relationship, which I don't think many people had talked about, with Lamar Jackson is outstanding to my understanding, even though he was on the other side of the ball when he was in that building. They actually had a very good relationship back then. I think that plays a big part in this. I just think if there's an owner that does understand this process, and we'll get into it throughout the course of these, debating these hires, Steve Bisciotti might be the only one that has made his money in something similar to evaluating candidates and who can fill the role of a particular job, something that most owners whiff on entirely. I think this is an excellent fit for every reason I listed and probably more.
You hit every requisite bullet point there, because I don't think you can't be taken seriously putting anyone in S unless it's a fit between organization being an S and the potential of the coach. And it's kind of like someone that they're in love with coming home. I mean, there's no variable on, do we know this guy's character? Do we feel like he can be a part of the Ravens organization and culture? Yes to all of it. I would have put him there too. I like it.
Ooh. That makes me feel bad.
I'm with you. I like this one. You could say A also, but S, I'm totally cool with it. Up next, Buffalo Bills, Joe Brady. This one's a little bit more polarizing. I liked it more than some people. I like the continuity. I don't think the Bills, despite the frustration around the organization not getting over the hump, I don't think it means you have to blow the whole thing up. And I obviously you're pairing a guy that gets along well with Josh Allen, who's the center of everything there. They really did improve on offense once he got promoted into that position in the middle of the season. He obviously made a good impression inside the building during his time, and they thought he was ready for it. So they kind of know who they're dealing with. And I like the hires. I don't know if we factor that in, like Jim Leonard coming over to run the defense. Yes. People really like Leonard and see him as a rising star on that side of the ball. So put that all together. I'm going to put this as a B tier. It's just a touch below A for me. But I think it's a solid hire, and I think it's one that Bills fans that are frustrated by how these seasons have gone. I know you want to say, oh, let's go get a Harbaugh or something else and just start over again. I think it's not the time to panic in Buffalo. It's time to get more better players at wide receiver, beef up the defense a little bit, and take another shot at this with a head coach and play caller that knows how to make the most of Josh Allen. I like the hire.
Okay.
I'd say quickly that if you had brought in a Harbaugh or someone else, you might be in a world where you're back cycling through play callers for Josh Allen. Like, we know they like each other. It works.
It's a big deal.
Yeah, they've got a lot. We maybe we'll get into this during some of our next segment, but there's a lot that the Bills have to handle this offseason in terms of free agency, cap, other stuff. So I kind of like the fact that the guy who's there and promoted and get along with the GM, like, it's low drama. So I'm with you.
Low
James,
drama.
you're not on the
like
same
it.
page, it seems like.
No, I'm going to mention two of my favorite films of all time, Willy Wonka and The Butterfly Effect. The first one I'll go with. Two of my favorite.
Which is it the more recent adaptation of Willy Wonka or the original?
No, the OG, Gene Wilder, 100%. And don't even mention the creepy Johnny Depp version. But
yeah, many choices.
It's been fascinating to watch this because Joe Brady arrives, and he's the quarterback coach. Ken Dorsey gets fired. He becomes the offensive coordinator. Sean McDermott gets fired. He becomes the head coach. It's like kids keep getting bumped off one by one, and he's Charlie at the end, just standing there with the chocolate factory, a.k.a. the Bills. And he just kind of, in a very short period of time, this is not a long NFL career, by the way. In the other building he was in Carolina, it did not go well at all. So I find that part of it very fascinating. I understand the Josh Allen aspect. Now to the other feature film called The Butterfly Effect. I believe that was
which
Ashton
I believe you've brought up
Kutcher.
several times in this program now. You're a big Kutcher head, as we know.
And that's what we call ourselves, Kutcher heads. And there was a time when Davis Webb was the quarterback within the building. And the Bills, to my understanding, wanting to make him the quarterback coach the very next season. Davis Webb turns that down to play one more year, I believe, with the Giants, right? If he would have taken that job and taken that quarterback coach job instead of Joe Brady getting it, would it have been Davis Webb that was Charlieing his way to the top of this factory?
Now we're crossing over.
All the way back. We could blend these films together now. It's just very, very interesting the way that this has gone down. And I also, just last note, he had a huge role in drafting Keon Coleman, to my understanding. I mean, a massive say in it. So when that press conference went down, I was like, well, there's no way Joe Brady gets this job. Apparently not. We're cool with it.
The Keon Coleman thing, it's like, there have been way bigger busts than a second-round wide receiver. Why are we talking about him like he's Jamarcus Russell or something? He's like the center of like this drama around the organization. I know he was disappointing, but he also had some moments for that team. He's not beyond repair.
Well, that
Why
was
did
also
he become the
This isn't
poster
Jalen
boy for
Reagor by the Eagles picked
dysfunction.
right before Justin Jefferson. You know, this isn't.
Yeah, well,
That's where you'd rather the owner not opine on gridiron topics for 15 minutes in the middle of a press conference, too. I mean,
that's fair. It's a classic Kutcher situation, a Kutcheration. All right, Mark, do you want to handle the Brown ones, or do you want to recuse yourself from this one?
No, I can do the Browns.
Okay.
Because I think this is where the exercise is interesting, because I really like Todd Monken, the coach, from what I'm learning and the more I watch him, other coaches say about him and players as well. I think you can't put anyone going to Cleveland in the current situation above a D. It's not really about Todd Monken so much, but we talked about why, like, the Ravens fit. The Browns are the opposite. You don't have a quarterback. The owner gets in the way, even though I don't think he's as inflammatory as some would suggest, because he was pretty patient with Kevin Stefanski, but he gets in the way. And the Browns are going into a deep, dark dive and a hell, and it's going to be a lot for any coach they hired to survive it. So it's more, for me, a survival mission, and I can't put that above a D.
Survival mission. Wow. My 2 cents real quick, and then you can go, Dan, is there were people in the building, to my understanding, scratching their heads after the Todd Monken hire. So when you're not in alignment as an organization with the hire, to me, just right from the get-go, it's like, is this a D? Is this a, like, it didn't even seem when I made calls that there was a universal, like, yep, this is our guy. And if you're starting with that, day one.
No.
Like, it's difficult, man. It's just really, really difficult. And then you push out the really good piece in your building, which was Jim Schwartz.
Yeah. Did all the spin cycle after the hire didn't pass the sniff test to me, just because the source that it was coming from. All right. Up next, the Raiders, Clint Kubiak, James.
Okay. I think this is a B. Obviously, I'm a fan of the family. I was a beat reporter for Gary in Houston and watched him work as a head coach. I know that there is a lot of Gary Kubiak in Clint Kubiak. And when I say that, it's that he does get what he wants and is very firm with it with very few words. His father is the only man I've ever known to bench Peyton Manning. And like, that takes stones, if anybody knows the way Peyton is wired. And so Clint has some of that, for lack of a better term, dickhead to him that Gary has. And I mean that in a very loving manner. You can't push them around, even though they don't say a lot. A look or two gets what they want accomplished. I think this is a little bit of a different organization than what we've dealt with in the past, and that he's going to get his quarterback from the jump. I think Max Crosby is going to depart the Raiders and he gets an excess of picks to help him right out of the chute. I will say this, the only caveat that made me think about C is there were a number of candidates I spoke with that came out of their interviews saying, who's running the Raiders? Like, and if you come out of your interview going, I still don't really know who's running this team, that's a little terrifying.
All right, let's pivot now to the Miami Dolphins. Jeff Hafley, defensive-minded guy, obviously impressed in interviews, has a connection to John Eric Sullivan, the new GM. I like all that. I don't like the setup for him. I think he's in a very difficult situation, which we're going to get to after this discussion. So I'll put it generously in the C tier. I'll put it that way. I don't want to cast any judgment on the guy. He seems to... He has a chance for success here, but I just don't love. It's one of those hires that was just kind of like more of a shoulder shrug than anything else from me. James, what did you think about it?
Interesting move with Bobby Slowick as your offensive coordinator. That is a real good buddy of his. I know Bobby a little bit. I think this is going to be interesting to see what they do offensively. I do like, when you mentioned some of the struggles, I do like the change in hierarchy. I have a bit of like a obsession right now with the way organizations are getting aligned, and they have switched to more of the horizontal kind of like a alignment here. And I like where they're at with putting him right next to John Eric Sullivan, right next to Brendan Shore, who does their cap stuff, and kind of finding a way to, how do we create just a better evaluation of talent? And that's something that's lacked there big time. I do think they can change that quicker than maybe some of the other issues. I don't know if this is going to work, though. I just do understand the plan, if that makes sense, which is like, okay, I get what you're getting at. Is it going to work? I don't know. But I do understand the changes you made as an organization to see if you can get there.
I think it's a gentleman's seat is fitting here. I think Hafley is a good coach, and in the right team situation, he could shine. This is a tough team situation, and he inherited some major problems, and it's going to be a rough. If you're the owner, you got to say this year's going to be rough, and then let's see where we are about a year from now.
All right, let's move to John Harbaugh, Giants. Mark.
All right, Harbaugh. I'm going to go A.
I agree.
Woo-woo. I'm going to go A because I think that out of the gate, it's the obvious S. I don't think on this show we called it the obvious S. I think that my only what I like about it is that I think the Giants are on board with Harbaugh coming in and reformatting, to your point about how hierarchy works and how the organization works, that Harbaugh has full control, it sounds like, to reimagine the Giants organization in the way that we have historically, but they haven't been for a long time. Needed, necessary. I do wonder longevity compared to the Minter hire, where it's like, if this works, he's there for 18 years, 15 years. Harbaugh is older. Is this kind of like get everyone back on track for 4 years, 3 years, 4 years, and then see where we are? That's my question. Just like it's a tough job in terms of, I think, some of the personnel. I totally trust that he can do it. It's an A, so I'm not critiquing it, but it's not a complete home run because there's a lot of work for him as a head coach to do ahead. It's not just it's like a head coach plus job for me in terms of responsibility.
Yeah, I thought everyone presumed that Monken was going to go with him up the turnpike, and it didn't work out that way, obviously, with the Browns making that surprise move. And that's the only thing that because Harbaugh is more a CEO type rather than some guy that's going to come in and the development and develop a quarterback. And Jackson Dart certainly is a guy that has a lot of promise, but a lot of work that needs to be done. So I think it's a great hire stability-wise for the Giants, and anybody that doesn't say it's – anybody that wants to go B or below, I think just probably hates the Giants. It's a hard – to me, it's a very hard hire to be down on, but I think the staff will matter around him.
Interesting. And you didn't mention one Senor Matthew Nagy as the new offensive coordinator there, which is I think very interesting to watch. I'm not sold on an A, and I'm not a Giants hater. I just, there are two things that I want to think about with this. First one being that this is very similar to what happens when what makes certain coaches successful in college, which is a new group of individuals come in and you're more on the hard edge type of coach. And it's very easy to continue that in college because a new group comes in over and over again. That message that John, and the way he operates did get a bit stale to my understanding in Baltimore with a lot of the players. Is that just now new group, we're rocking and rolling? Or, as I've had some people mention this to me, is John's style of coaching not fitting today's NFL player? And I think that is something I'm going to keep my eye on a little bit, because players today have changed dramatically from the success that John had in the early portions with the Ravens.
I mean,
John
his brother,
Harbaugh
they say the same about his brother sometimes. It's like the Harbaugh experience seems to have sometimes a shelf life.
Yeah.
All right, two more. Mike McCarthy, Steelers, another polarizing hire here. What do you think, James?
I'm going to give this I hate to say it because I love the Steelers organization. I'm going to give this a C. And it's really because you've had a model that has worked so well that you've had fewer head coaches than popes since like the late 60s. And so like what you've done so well, you steered away from. And now I know that we're a quarterback-centric league and we're going to use Mike McCarthy to kind of fix our quarterback spot. But immediately within the press conference, it's like, are we keeping Aaron Rodgers for another year? Like, I just feel like, how are we going to continue the Steeler way, but also develop a quarterback at the same time? Hell, if he gets a quarterback, something that they've been searching for forever, this definitely jumps up. I'm just curious if that happens. And if that doesn't happen, I think this is the appropriate spot for it to be.
I think Mike McCarthy is one of the coaches that people have burnt out on a little. And so the whole process of him joining the Steelers just doesn't feel very vibrant or sexy to some. I think he's a good coach. I think the Steelers, to me, though, seem reluctant to look at their own roster, their own situation, where they are inside the league, inside the AFC, and maybe go in for a real rebuild with a young coach and make some tough changes. They seem reluctant to do that from ownership on down. And I think Mike McCarthy, to me, feels like, let's keep trying to get into the wild card round and maybe go from there.
I mean, I guess they need to, one thing that would possibly actually spur that is them stop winning 10 games and stop going to the playoffs.
Yeah.
And even, last year with Rodgers, maybe we'll come up in our next segment, but they won 10 games and got to the playoffs. Maybe McCarthy, he just certainly doesn't look at this, and Steelers fans probably don't want to hear this, but maybe as a means to an end. Like, they have to get to that point where it's like, all right, this is not working anymore. We need to reboot the operation. And they couldn't convince themselves that this was the time yet. So they will remain in the cul-de-sac of elite mediocrity, perhaps for one more year. Finally, one more hire. It's Robert Saleh. It's the Tennessee Titans. And of course, we're going to give Gravy the chance to hopefully handle this assignment with a level of professionalism. Go ahead, Justin.
Oh, yeah. I mean, clear S tier. Sorry. Okay, I'll do this for real. I think, like, the biased Titans fan in me wants to go with the hopeful B, but I think if I want to remove that and be objective, it's a C. It can definitely work if the things that were not working in New York are done better this time around. And that's not just the offensive coordinator and the quarterback, which were obviously huge with his Jets tenure. It's also a few in-game management decisions, not holding your timeouts too long, knowing when to be aggressive, not having one of the most penalized teams in the league. Like, these are all areas that he has to improve upon from his last stint as a head coach. And if those things happen, I think we just saw the first ever defensive head coach play caller win a Super Bowl. It does feel like, with the way that the past 2 Super Bowls and this past season especially have gone, that defense matters maybe more than having an elite quarterback once again, as it did 20 years ago and then stopped mattering. And now we maybe are back around to that. So if that all works out, this could be a great success. If the other stuff continues to pose issues, then he'll be out in 3 or 4 years.
I'll paint the optimistic picture. I think you could even move it to B. You could, and I don't think there would be a lot of pushback. He makes sense as a guy that deserves a second shot. As crazy as it seems now, with Saleh, the Jets had an awesome plan set up just a few years ago where he rebuilt the defense. They were one of the top defenses in the league. They identified they were a quarterback away. They went and got Aaron Rodgers, and that team was really set up, and we'll never know what happened because he blows the Achilles in week 1. I agree with you. If they can get this defense playing at an even higher level, and it was a defense on the rise last year, and then the Dable hire, which I thought was a nice component of this as well, to work with Cam Ward, I think you could be cooking, obviously. And they are the team, and we talk about it every year. It was the Giants were in this conversation last year, ironically, with Brian Dable as their head coach, where a lot of people are going to get on a bandwagon and try to find a team that's a sleeper team in the AFC. I guarantee a lot of people are going to be talking about the Titans. Whether that's premature or not, we'll see. But it checks all the boxes. New charismatic coach, a young quarterback who finished his prior season with a level of buzz, a roster that has players on both sides of the ball, a superstar or two dotting the roster. Like, they will be a team a lot of people are excited about. And Saleh is, if nothing else, James Palmer, a good salesman. He's a good face of the brand. So whether or not the Titans are going to be a team on the rise next year, I don't know. But I know people will be talking about it this summer. You can mark it right now.
I like that you said salesman because he was rocking a pair of same Italian shoes from Magnani that I own. So I saw him at that press conference and said, "Oh, this Robert Saleh's got taste." He also has taste in coordinators, which I would say is a feather in the cap of this staff already. When I look at all 3 coordinators have been hired, they all have called plays. They all have been head coaches in the past. To me, I think that's a huge move early on in this process for Robert Saleh. I think that helps with a lot of, and I think Justin hit on it a little bit, game management, what happens during the week in terms of preparing your players, but more specifically what happens in terms of some of the issues that Robert Saleh had in terms of how you handle Sundays. I think with all of the experience of those 3 men at the coordinator spots, I think makes them a reputable team in terms of not hurting yourself, being one of those type of organizations to where you're just getting yourself in the right direction as you continue to build your roster.
And I'd throw this into to have multiple stints with the Shanahan universe, right? Like, you went out on your own to an organization in the Jets that can make it about as tough as possible on a first-time head coach. It didn't work for reasons belonging to him and beyond him, certainly. You go back to Shanahan again. You're back out. The Titans, from financials, in terms of a better front office, I think, than they've had in a long time with their GM. A young quarterback, that's an if, but it's a good if. I wish we had a category that was like B plus, or I would say C plus B minus, because I think C is a little
good. Justin,
I want to put him in B. Maybe
cool with it. We're cool if you want to do it. There you go.
Put him in B.
Let's do it, baby. Hope season's back.
I think this might be a very quick stint for Brian Dable, though. I'm just going to throw that out there.
That would be good, though. That would be good, though.
Mm-hmm. I don't want to make
what
this
happens this year.
Yes, I mean, if it is a quick stint, it's because Cam Ward is like MVP level candidate level player, and I don't want to.
Or he's terrible.
Well, that too. I don't want to make this longer than it needs to be, but think about all the hot head coaching names who didn't get a job this last cycle, who are going to be, again, barring an MVP Cam Ward season, above Dable on the list next year. The Shieldhouses, the Davis Webbs, the Chris Shulas. Like, there's a lot of guys like that, not to mention Mike Tomlin and Sean McDermott if they get back into the mix. So I don't know that it's a foregone conclusion he's just out of there in 1 year.
Okay. There you go. There it is, the tiers. Let's take a break, and then we will finish out the show with a little talk about big storylines to watch.
All right, picture this. My go-to protein-packed meal when I want something ridiculously satisfying. I'm talking smash burgers, thin patties hitting a screaming hot pan, that instant sizzle, the smell of beef filling the kitchen. I press it down, let those crispy edges form, and boom, deep, beefy flavor that honestly makes fast food feel embarrassing. Juicy on the inside, crusty on the outside, melty cheese, toasted bun. You know, the kind of bite where you have to pause for a second because, yeah, it's that good. And here's the thing. I don't always have time to play chef, but I always want high-quality protein on hand. That's where Omaha Steaks come in clutch. They make it easy to keep your freezer stocked with premium options. Whether it's handcrafted steaks for the grill or versatile chicken, pork, seafood, and more delivered right to your door. So whenever the craving hits, you're ready. No drive-thru required. Get 50% off the world's best everyday protein. Go to omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide during their President's Day sale. And for an extra $35 off, use promo code T-BONE at checkout.
Hey, this is Richard Deitch, the host of the Sports Media Podcast. If you're interested in what's happening with all the places where you consume sports, the Sports Media Podcast has you covered.
I've been turning down interviews all week. Hoda Kotb reached out, Oprah, George Stephanopoulos. So I said no. I was booked on the Deitch podcast before the Taylor Swift phenomenon. I must live up to my responsibility.
Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
If the birth control pill isn't feeling like the right fit anymore, you've got options. Natural Cycles is the only FDA-cleared birth control app that's 100% hormone-free. It works by tracking your daily temperature to pinpoint your fertile days, so you'll know which days you can and can't get pregnant. No hormones, no side effects, just science that works with your body. Millions have already made the switch, and you can too. Save 15% when you sign up today with code RADIO15 at naturalcycles.com.
All right, we are back. Let's now turn our attention with the head coaches in place. We look into the crystal ball and tell you, the hedonist, what are the big storylines that will really dominate the discourse of our league in the next few months. And I'll start right here.
Okay.
Jimmy Palmer. Mm-hmm. Jimmy P.
Yeah.
Anybody call you Jimmy?
Kay Adams calls me Jimmy Palm Trees.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Yeah, that was after my stint in Tampa for a long time covering Brady during COVID. She called me Jimmy Palm Trees. I mean, that one's not bad.
All right, but that's her name. I'm not gonna co-opt it. We'll start
Tom
here.
Curran calls me Jimmy all the time. Jim.
There you go.
Anybody in Boston will call you Jim.
Right. They
That
can't
makes
help
sense.
If you
themselves
ask for it or
in Boston.
not, they can't help themselves. Yeah.
First big storyline: Kyler, Tua, and the teams with QB question marks. It's a complicated situation for both of these players. So let's look at it. Let's start this way. The Dolphins and Cardinals, two teams that kind of want a fresh start at quarterback, right? But that list also includes, and let me know if I missed any here, but the Jets, the Falcons potentially, the Browns, the Steelers, the Vikings. Okay. And what we know about Tua is that it's an insanely prohibitive contract that, remember, he signed, holy shiest, he signed a $212 million extension in July of 2024. They already owe him $54 million guaranteed in 26. Another $3 million of that salary in 2027 becomes guaranteed on the fifth day of the new league year on March 15th. We all have heard this. Cutting Tua will leave $99 million dead money salary cap charge, the largest in NFL history. You designate him as a post-June 1 cut, it would spread the money out over 2 years. It's a mess, and it's one of the reasons why Hafley is up against it in his first year as the coach. It's not quite that dire for Kyler Murray, guaranteed $36.8 million in 2026. If he's still on the roster at March 15th, almost $20 million of his 27 salary becomes guaranteed if he's still on Arizona's roster. All of which is to say there are not a lot of veteran options on this market. Tua and Kyler, from a skill level and experience and success, would be at the top of that list. But James, do their contracts make them very unlikely to move? Clearly, the teams would love to be rid of them, but how does the actual money side of things affect how this is going to play out?
Okay, let's start with Tua. That's $99 million. You're right on that one. The Broncos went with releasing Russell Wilson. That was $85 million. Now, the interesting part is with the way the salary cap has gone up, the $99 million is actually a smaller percentage of the cap than Russell Wilson's $85 million was.
Interesting.
So it actually is in a better situation than what Denver went through and is now finally out of after getting to the AFC title game, still dealing with, they split it up over 2 years, the second of the 2 years.
They prove you can survive this type of catastrophe.
You can do it. There's an interesting aspect of Tua that I feel like, and I want your guys' opinion that I maybe I'm hung up on, but like this guy threw the locker room under the bus multiple times throughout the course of the season. I had heard some things had changed with Tua in terms of on and the field and off the field. Is that appealing to other teams? Like, do you want to bring in the guy who talks about player-only meetings, the guy who I just find that very fascinating. And from an on-the-field side of it, and Mark looks like he wants to talk about this, so I want you to answer that question, Mark. But the other part is on the field, like the style in which he plays and talking to offensive coordinators, it's not translating to where the league is going. So I find him to be a very fascinating person within this offseason.
Yeah, it's like, when you're out in the world, away from home as an adult, very early on in adulthood, and you get into a jam that one time and you got to call your dad and say, like, I need a little bit of help here, whether it's financial or whatever. It's more than advice. I need some tangible help. Like, who's going to do that favor for the Dolphins and take the Tua situation out of Miami and adopt it? Money-wise, on the field-wise, injury-wise, and you have to sell that to a fan base. Like, to Dan's point, there just isn't a quarterback out there that isn't saddled with issues that leave a fan and the front office executive, the person paying for all of this, saying, why would we do that? We're in an era where, like, you could hit on and survive with a young quarterback that costs a fraction of this, or at least get to the next offseason where there are different and better options. I know Miami wants someone to help him out here. I cannot find a suitor for this, barring something unforeseen.
Can I also
just
throw one thing we haven't talked about either is he has a history of chronic brain injuries.
Well, right. No, as I said,
so
the durability part. Yeah.
Like a mass, his next hit can be his last in the league. So you're also taking on that enormous risk in addition to everything else. If anything, like James, I would think Kyler Murray, even if the Cardinals might be done with him, and Michael LaFleur obviously is going to have a say in that, you would think, or he should. But given his contract situation and what's going to be out there for the Cardinals, unless they fall in love with a quarterback in this draft class, I would think it's more likely Kyler stays in Arizona than Tua stays in Miami, because I don't know if the Cardinals have a better solution, and it's not quite as toxic, it seems, although that doesn't seem like a great situation either.
Yeah, listen, both these teams do have a quarterback on the roster. Like, Quinn Ewers wasn't awful at the end of the year. Do you want to roll Quinn Ewers out there for the duration of the season in Miami? I don't think that's honestly a terrible thing to do in your first year. But do you go with Jacoby Brissett he's still under contract, I believe, for another year in Arizona? I would say, from the information I've gathered recently, there is a greater chance of Kyler Murray staying than there was probably of him staying 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago. I think the chances of him remaining in Arizona have increased. That doesn't mean it happens. I don't want to say that like he's staying, but I think the chances have probably increased a little bit. And he is such a fascinating player because there have been stretches in his career, and I think we probably all can agree on this. He's played like a top 7 or 8 quarterback in this league for sure. Consistency has been just something he cannot lasso at all. Like, and maybe, and with that talent, I'm saying every single coach goes, well, wait till I get my hands on him. I'm curious if Mike LaFleur is one of those guys.
I mean, I wonder if things have changed, the tenor of him staying. Like, is that indication LaFleur feels like versus
That's
LaFleur working with nobody,
lately, right? Yeah.
Right.
So I don't hate
Brisket,
it, but
yeah. I mean, I believe it's just 1 year more guaranteed money, it's not as prohibitive as the Miami situation.
He's very tradable post June 1, especially if they could work out some designation.
And maybe
there.
they just want that fresh start, and they can have Jake Brisket as a low cost guy that can hold down the fort. Maybe you do draft a developmental piece or start building a strategy towards 27 and a better quarterback class. Mark, you are up. Give us a storyline that is going to define this offseason.
Well, I think along with the quarterbacks, the position that can alter a team is the edge rusher. And, listen, I've heard what Max Crosby had to say during Super Bowl week after Jay Glazer said, sounds like these two, the Raiders and Max Crosby, will not be together after this offseason. I don't really care what Max Crosby said. And the Raiders do seem like they're, for the second offseason in a row, there's more direction. There's some hope. Crosby wants to win. He wants to win a Super Bowl, and he doesn't want to be part of a circus or malarkey. I think they can get out of that, but I do believe if you're the Raiders, they are one of 3 teams with an edge rusher that I think you can absolutely call a difference maker. Max Crosby could change your organization if you swung a trade and got multiple number ones. And what I'll do is let me just throw out 2 other situations and I'll let you guys toss them around, okay? I think the second guy, Trey Hendrickson, is absolutely going elsewhere. I don't think that the Bengals franchise him. I shouldn't say absolutely. I don't think they franchise him, but someone like the Niners or the Panthers, Hendrickson is a altering talent who can change a defense. The third guy, and I know that this is super prohibitive, it really is, but you've just parted ways with the defensive coordinator that helped him shine as no other time before in his life. Myles Garrett, it is really rough to trade him, but to James's point and to the way that the Browns front office works, they have no money. They have no problem in the past pushing money down the road. It's a very cost prohibitive situation. It would create $41 million to $68 million in dead cap, depending on certain things. It's rough. But you could also refashion your entire organization. I think the Browns defense right now, based on some tweets, some social media, they feel like on the edge of revolt. Is this the right time to try to keep 2 or 3 stars around, or do you find a way to trade them this offseason? That's 3 guys who will be on different teams, potentially.
I'll stick with Max. I had always been told over the last year and a half that the only way Max would ever leave the Raiders is when he finally comes in and knocks on the door of Mark Davis and says, I think it's time for me to go. I was always told that was going to be the only way that he leaves. They love him. He creates the culture. I know things have gone terribly wrong during his time there, but if you ask anybody, he leads everything from all of their off-season weight room stuff, all of their player-only workout sessions, everything that they run. He creates this culture within the room. But I also know, as we talked about Mitch Williams at the top of this show, and when pitchers and catchers are reporting, let's go, there was always this analogy with my dad working in baseball to where, like, closers and late inning relievers are luxuries. And when your team's not very good, why have it when they're not being utilized to get you over the hump? And there's always been an equation to edge rushers being very similar to that. Max Crosby closing out games in the fourth quarter and doing what those great edge rushers do that we saw Von Miller do for an eternity in Denver, and certain guys that just, Aaron Donald, I know he's on the edge, but you know what I mean? Like, that doesn't help your team when you're never in a position for that guy to make that play, because you're losing in the fourth quarter consistently. And I do think there is a time now to where we're in a completely different feel in Vegas, to where these picks matter a lot more maybe than in years past because of the holes on the roster, because of where the roster is right now. And you could be entering into a rookie quarterback contract. And I think it's a little bit different. Trey Hendrickson, you let him walk, by the way, you get nothing really. I guess it's not a tradable situation, right? Like the other 2, and your quarterback and your situation as an organization is very different than, say, the Browns and the Raiders are right now.
I'm looking at the Micah Parsons trade as an obvious parallel for these. He's younger. He was 25, I believe, when the Cowboys traded him to the Packers, of course. That trade was for 2 first-round picks and defensive tackle Kenny Clark, a former Pro Bowl tackle. I don't think you get that. You would get that type of package for Myles Garrett, but I'm not convinced the Browns are going to move Myles Garrett. Crosby, would he come at the cost of 2 firsts? I don't know.
I think so.
I
He's 28.
think so too.
He's got big time years left in him. He's not the player that Parsons is, but he is, to your point, a major game changing talent on the edge and a culture setter. And I think
that was Micah's knock, right? That was something you had to check off if you were going to make the trade.
I think we could all easily picture the idea of Max Crosby getting out of Vegas, going to a contender, and that being a huge story, and talking about, oh, he's the missing piece of the Buffalo Bills, or insert contender here, and it being something that you could easily identify as, he could be the Jenga piece for a defense that's one guy away. All right, James, give us one.
Okay, I'm going to go with the birthplace of our nation, the birthplace of yours truly, Philadelphia.
There you go.
This is going to be a fascinating year throughout the offseason and throughout, I think, the entire 2026 regular season as we keep our eyes on the Philadelphia Eagles. Howie Roseman, I think, is a very forward-thinking general manager. But I was having this conversation with a defense coordinator the other day who was like, how is it that in one conversation with people around the league, you can have the conversation to where the Eagles operate as an organization at such a higher level, it is envied across the league. And then turn your chair and have another conversation going, all I hear is this is one of the most dysfunctional buildings in the NFL. It is both of those at the same time. And the loss of Jeff Stoutland cannot be underestimated. There's a chance that leads, to my understanding, the retirement of Lane Johnson. If Landon Dickerson can't play anymore, if A.J. Brown ends up departing, Dallas Goedert is a free agent. Like, this is a very different situation in Philadelphia than they've been used to for a number of years if a lot of those things happen. Vic Fangio has contemplated retirement each and every year these last couple of seasons. The loss of Christian Parker going to Dallas, honestly, when I talk to people there, is enormous. He has changed the trajectory of Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. So all these change that has happened in Philadelphia, a building that is usually used to a lot of continuity, is something we're going to, I think, certainly keep our eye on, as well as the quarterback, and that you have Nick Sirianni, who was on the hot seat 2 years ago, really was, guys, honestly, before they win that Super Bowl over Kansas City. And I think his seat might be hot again, and he has the 5th highest winning percentage in the history of the NFL. This has just been such a fascinating building to watch. But all of this change, I'm really curious how Nick Sirianni and Howie Roseman navigate all of it.
Is it? Can I ask you a quick question? Like, Stoutland leaving, I mean, is
and for everyone, Stoutland, the offensive line coach extraordinaire, that made big ripples over the weekend going into the Super Bowl.
Right, it's an immense identity shift for what the Eagles have been in this last 10 years or so. And then you hear Fangio wanting to potentially retire, and then they struggled to get anyone to come in to coach the offense. Like, is it a Sirianni issue, or is that too simple?
No, I think it's the quarterback is largely at play, Mark, in coming in and operating that offense. I think these what is it in Wolf of Wall Street when Jonah Hill says these things? They gossip, they talk, they gossip. These offensive coordinators gossip. You don't think Kellen Moore was talking to people going, I couldn't run half the stuff I want to run in Philadelphia with the situation that we had at hand. There's been plenty of people going, this offense, if you didn't run this style of offense, imagine the player Devontae Smith would be. There are people in the league that are like, this guy could be unlocked to be a superstar in a different situation with a different quarterback. And so I just think there's a lot at play here. Nick creates a certain environment that has worked a lot, but I think it steers some people away. I know Zach Robinson preferred Baker Mayfield over Jalen Hurts in his decision on where he wanted to be an offensive coordinator. And so I just think there's a lot at play here when you also have a quarterback that is changing a little bit, it seems, in the way he's playing, Mark, right? Like, the legs are a big part of the way he plays the position. And I think we saw if he doesn't do that, it's a completely different game. And so I think there's a lot more known around the league about the situation than probably anybody who's going, well, look at all the talent they have.
It's pretty dark.
I listen, everybody knows my feeling on Nick Sirianni. I always found it to be highly reductive. Anytime you tried to criticize Nick Sirianni, going into last season, it was like, oh, well, look at his winning percentage. Like, as if that's, as if you actually cover the sport and watch the sport, it always felt like this team was a little bit of a house of cards, and everything broke right, obviously brilliantly last year with the Super Bowl title. And we saw the way last year played out. And now the way this offseason is playing out, it does speak to dysfunction. And now you have to be, again, if you were the one that was pounding the table about how brilliant Nick Sirianni was last summer, you better be ready to back that up with some defense of his ability to handle this situation, because it's going to be a real test. Feels like a house of cards. And I'm really excited to see what happens next with
Dan's
your
showing us the
hometown
receipts, and he wants the
Eagles.
receipts from the other people.
That's all I'm saying.
And Dan, that's a great point, though, because honestly, what happened when things went bad in Philadelphia this past year? Nick Sirianni and Kevin Petula kind of took over the run game concepts. What happens also when things go bad, usually head coaches panic, put more on themselves, try to essentially take over. Let's see what happens with Mannion running that offense. And does Nick take a step back and use the one thing that I always have heard as a positive with him is let his coordinators work and manage all the personalities around? Does that work in keeping AJ Brown? We'll see. I think that's a big part of the off-season part before we get to the regular season part.
And then one thing to keep an eye on as we spin forward later in the summer when we do our hot butt exercise, will Sirianni be the first head coach ever to go from hottest butt to on the totally safe list back to the hottest butt list over a 3-year period?
God.
That's the Eagles in a nutshell.
That feels
team to figure
Eagles-esque,
out.
yes.
Can't wait to be back for that.
All right, let's do kind of a speed round for our last one as we wrap things up here. This hasn't really been talked about, so I want to throw it out there. Like, are we sure that the Raiders are taking Fernando Mendoza? Like, are we sure? Are we certain? I know it makes sense. It makes sense, but I'm wondering if in this draft class, where he's the clear-cut number one quarterback, obviously, but when Tom Brady and John Spytek and I guess Mark Davis and Clint Kubiak put their heads together, do they say this guy actually is the dog that we need for this organization? Or do they take a broader look at how we build this operation, which needs help everywhere? And then most crucially, let's take a look at who is behind us in the draft. Okay. The number 2 overall pick, a team armed with 3 or 4 first round picks over the next 2 years. The New York Jets, they're picking 2. Desperate need of a quarterback. Number 3 pick overall, the Arizona Cardinals, a team in fairly desperate need of a true franchise quarterback. Then you look at the number 6 pick, the Cleveland Browns, another team that is dying for a quarterback. These are teams, by the way, that I just mentioned: Jets, Cardinals, Browns. If you had to make a list, Mark, arguably the 3 most dysfunctional organizations in the league right now, you might say Jets, Cardinals, Browns. And dysfunctional teams do crazy shit, like agree to insane trades, for example, to get to the number 1 pick to take a quarterback that they believe is going to be the one that's going to drag them out of the abyss. So I would say if the Raiders love Fernando Mendoza, they're going to take him, obviously, because they need a quarterback too, and they want to set this thing on the right path with a promising new head coach in Clint Kubiak. But if there are any doubts in that building about Mendoza, and also knowing that next year's quarterback is what it's going to be, potentially much, much better and deeper, the Raiders would be foolish not to pick up the phone when they start getting calls from these desperate, bad teams that are dying for a quarterback.
I think it's much more who comes to the Raiders with an offer that they simply can't organizationally, and they being, to your question, James, who are they and who's making that decision? And what was Kubiak told before he took the job? Like, we're definitely taking this guy. You're going to have a quarterback. We're not saddling you.
I wouldn't love that. If I was Kubiak, I'd be like, you better give me a voice in the room on who my quarterback's going to be.
If he were on board with it and wanted it, right, you don't want to be controlled that way. But I'm a little concerned, and I watched a lot more of Mendoza than I do most college football just because of what happened with the playoffs. It was an incredible journey, but there are people out there that say, hold the reins here. Like, this is not a first overall
That's
pick
my point.
type of
He's
talent.
a first overall pick in this draft.
Yeah. So
but
I think
the
it's
people
very
that make the decisions need to decide whether he actually is Like, is he Joe Burrow? Is he Andrew Luck? Like, is he Trevor Lawrence? Like, is he that guy that actually is a clear-cut number one? Or is it just the circumstances of this particular draft class are inflating his value?
It's like never a good idea to reach, if you're reaching for the only quarterback in the draft, right? Like one of the only guys that anyone would say is a first-round top 10
Might
pick.
be a red flag.
So I think it's possible if something comes into focus that's better for them. The Max Crosby thing. If you're just accruing picks and you feel like you can load up for next year and make a major run for a different type of quarterback, it's just a long journey for another coaching staff to go through this season without that hope and the fan base.
Yeah,
Jane.
I've heard a variety of things about Mendoza already, and we are just in the beginning of putting this puzzle together. When we put all the different pieces of the combine and the visits and the everything, I've heard when he could be at his best, he could be a middle of the pack NFL quarterback. That is some of the buzz. Some say he's a Jared Goff with a little more mobility. There's some of these things that I've been hearing around the league. Now, again, it's very early in the process. Is that exactly what Clint Kubiak is looking for? System, and we talked about fit at the beginning of the show and how much that matters. That question obviously was proposed to Clint Kubiak in the process. Like, what are your thoughts on Fernando Mendoza? I think that's probably part of it. But yeah, I think this is one that is not clear cut to my understanding. And again, I think it's because of the timetable we're in right now.
Yeah, we'll see. And trust me, if the Jets did pull the trigger and drafted Fernando Mendoza, I would be sold on it because he presents extremely well and is coming off, as Mark said, an incredible final season at Indiana as the Heisman Trophy winner. But in the back of your mind, you can't help but think like, this is a bad quarterback class.
Yeah. Do you think this could be the highest selling jersey of 2026 if he goes to the Raiders? It has to be. Mendoza to the Raiders.
Right.
Like, this has to be the highest selling jersey.
It will be a winner,
of the year.
a big winner.
Yes.
And maybe that's Mark Davis is a guy that likes money, like any other owner. Maybe that will be enough. All right, Mark, give us one more.
I want to circle back on the challenge the Bills face quickly. I know we talked about them a bit, but when they're watching the Patriots melt down in the Super Bowl, Bills fans are thinking, wait, no matter what, we could have done more in that game. We could have won that game maybe, or we could have done more. I don't know about win, but we could have looked like an AFC championship team. And you are still in that division. I think the AFC is a little murky. The Bills have to feel in their hearts we are still at the center of this, but it is a challenging offseason ahead. You are going to be around $10 million over the cap, a little bit less, but you've got 26 impending free agents. And I'll just leave it here. These are some of the names: Joey Bosa, Tre'Davious White, Jordan Poyer, A.J. Epinesa, Daquan Jones, Larry Ogunjobi, Matt Milano, Shaq Thompson, your entire defense, center Connor McGovern, David Edwards, your left guard, Matt Prater, your kicker, your punter is a free agent, Gabe Davis, Brandon Cooks. And we talk about the Bills as, they need to go out and just get a game-changing blue-chip wide receiver and bang, ticket them for the AFC title game. They've got to rebuild their defense based on who of these guys they bring back and what they plan to do. They've got 5 draft picks. They're not in a good cap situation. Brandon Beane faces a lot of challenges to have Joe Brady fielding a team that just picks up where they left off.
That is a good point, Mark, honestly. And they're part of an AFC, and I was thinking about this the other day. All right, who are our AFC top teams?
You got to have something to bitch about.
There it is. And when we look at the Ravens and the Bills and the Chiefs and, say, the Chargers, all of those teams have either a new head coach or a new offensive coordinator. Like, I think it's fascinating that we have so much change with all of these top quarterbacks that we have. And I love that you mentioned the punter and the kicker when we saw how huge those guys were in the Super Bowl for the most complete team in football with the Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah, I mean, if you're the Rams, you watched the Super Bowl and you were sick to your stomach because you knew you were going to crush the Patriots. If you're the Bills, damn it, how do we not get past the divisional round this year? It was all there for us again, and they couldn't do it.
They're like, if Bo Nix doesn't break his ankle,
Broncos are like a victim of fate, man. Between the quarterback breaking his ankle and the second to last play of overtime and then a blizzard, it was almost like the football gods are like, that's enough for you, Mr. Sean Payton. You're good right here. All right, close it out, James, as we wrap up a supersized edition of Heed the Call.
Okay, my breakdown here is going to be on C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young. What a monster year this is going to be for these two individuals. I think I really do believe both teams are picking up the fifth-year option. I think they've both hinted at it. I think the Panthers have been much more clear about saying they're doing it. But I think these are definitely quarterbacks to watch. And I'll mention Stroud first and foremost because he wanted all of this. He wanted more control at the line of scrimmage, I was told. He wanted more say at the line. He felt like with Bobby Slowick, he was going to the line with 2 plays, one hand behind his back. I either have this one or this one. I want to make more calls. I want to do it more mentally. It just didn't seem like it worked that well. And so I'm really fascinated to see what happens with C.J. Stroud. When I talked to people there, and I actually had this long conversation, I wrote it down, with Kurt Warner the other day about C.J. And Kurt's like, I really do not have an answer for you, James, at all. But he's gone from rookie year where Kurt believed he was a top 5 quarterback in the NFL to one of the worst quarterbacks in football now in Kurt's mind. And he's like, I've never seen that drastic of a change. He made a great point where he said, I've seen guys like Cam Newton and Matt Ryan have an outstanding year and then go back down to being good. This is like a different swing. And I thought that was a really good point by Kurt when we had this conversation. And so, I mean, there's going to be teams going like, what's your guys' take on him? I really do think that'll happen this offseason going, what's your guys' plans with CJ here? And the way Nick Cassera has put that team together, I think he's done a brilliant job of it. And I'm just curious how feelings will be this offseason when they jump at the chance to sign Will Anderson like they did with Derek Stingley, where they jump at the chance to make sure they lock up some of these guys early. And they may not be doing that with CJ Stroud. And they might have to wait. And I just think him and Bryce are a little bit different, but similar in what both organizations are going to have to evaluate this offseason.
I mean, it's going to say a lot about Stroud if there is hurt feelings or comments or some sort of brushback behind the scenes about who he is as a quarterback, because this is a guy that 7 turnovers in 2 playoff games. There is a chartable, tangible regression. I would say like someone like Carson Wentz fell off a cliff at some point to me.
That's a great call, Mark. Yeah.
It kind of feels like it was a little mystifying. It's hard to put a finger on what has happened to Stroud. There's protection issues, there's been line issues, but they were there that first year too. There's been coordinator shifts, but when you take where he was a couple years ago and we're now saying we're pretty sure they're going to grab the 5th-year option, that's a tumble. That's a tumble. And I do wonder, because he seems like the kind of guy where would another team at some point push to trade for him? Would the Texans ever listen to that? It would be very surprising if they did, because I can't believe they've given up on him yet. But you can't be thrilled with where you are, because he's the piece that kept them from going to the Super Bowl. I think they were a Super Bowl level defense too.
Think about the one-year wonders in recent memory, RG3, but injuries kind of wrecked his path. I think Wentz took quite a beating earlier in his career too. Not that I want to put it in the same class as RG3, but he fell off pretty quickly after being an MVP candidate with the Eagles. I never thought Stroud would be in that category,
no.
And yet here we are. And the Texans are scratching. We talk about who's watching Super Bowl 60 being like, damn it. How about the Texans? How about DeMeco Ryans and the Texans defense being like, we could have won this thing ourselves potentially if we just had a quarterback who could get out of the way like Sam Darnold did in the playoffs. And yet they did not.
Yeah.
James, you've said it all.
There it was. I was feeling for it.
Co-host Scoop City by The Athletic, NFL Insider, Bleacher Report, co-host, of course, of 89 with Steve Smith. Always on the move, my friend, and we thank you as always for joining us.
Oh, you kidding me? I know I was a late ad, so somebody probably dropped out, but I feel like this was the first choice for
you
today.
Were not a late ad. Dan and I were going to do the show together.
We legitimately, on Super Bowl Sunday night, we were like, we need some extra artillery for this episode. And Palmer, you were the first name that came to our mind.
Oh,
so,
I know I was.
How about that?
We are always simpatico, us over at 89 and you guys over here at Heed the Call. So yes, I will always be here.
I think we should do a little draft crossover.
Okay.
As we get closer to that event. Anyway,
yeah.
As far as on the Heed side of things, this is our one show this week. We gave you a little bonus action for this episode and getting JP involved. So I hope that's enough. We'll be back on Tuesday on the other side of the week. Connor Orr will be back with us as we, again, dig into this offseason with the Combine now right around the corner. Isn't it funny how the wheel keeps turning? All right, everybody. Have a great great week. And until next time, do what you must. Heed the call.
Guys, by now you've heard me talk about Collars & Co., makers of the dress collar polo. They've already sold over 1 million of these amazing shirts. Well, Collars & Co. just came out with the new Maverick Performance Blazer. This blazer is sharp and wrinkle resistant, so you can travel anywhere with it. Just throw it in your bag and it will remain wrinkle-free. It even comes with security zip pockets, a sunglasses loop, and an optional pocket square. So visit collarsandco.com and use code TIKI for 20% off at collarsandco.com.
Those trendy prebiotic sodas, they do absolutely nothing without enough good bacteria in your gut. Hi, I'm Tina, co-founder of Just Thrive Probiotic, the only probiotic proven to arrive 100% alive. See, most probiotics die in your stomach acid, but Just Thrive survives, giving you real relief from gas and bloat, healthy immunity, better sleep, and clear skin. Plus, Just Thrive comes with a lifetime money-back guarantee, so you have nothing to lose. Visit justthrivehealth.com/podcasts and use code POD20 for 20% off. Take control of your health today with Just Thrive.